Nearly 5 centuries ago, the French nobleman Michel de Montaigne was riding a few miles from his chateau when a servant's runaway horse slammed into him like a thunderbolt, thrown to the ground and carried home unconscious, my life hanging only by the tip of my lips. As he later wrote, he lay in bed for days in a strange, lucid calm. No panic, no grand speeches, just an unsettling peace as he seemed to glide toward death without fear. He would call it his essay of death, the moment that shattered the abstract philosophies he had admired from a distance and forced him to study the only subject he could truly know, the only subject we can truly know, ourselves. The result was what we know today as essays. The genre of essays was coined and invented by Montaigne himself and comes from the French word essayer, to try. In his notebooks and journals, Montaigne tested his moods, tracked his habits, and learned how to give his thoughts a task before they scattered. Hello friends, I'm Vašek Armenicus and welcome to Journaling Like Giants, a series of videos where I study how geniuses kept their notebooks and journals. I borrow the parts that still work, that still resonate over the centuries, and most of what we wrestle with today has already been figured out by sharper minds such as Michel de Montaigne, and what we need is to borrow their methods. So in this video, we'll borrow two of Michel de Montaigne's core ideas. The first core idea is called bridling idle thoughts, and it comes from his wonderful essay of idleness. I would really recommend you all to read that essay in full when you can. And the second idea is equally fascinating. It's called keeping a private back shop of the mind. It resembles a lot to Marcus Aurelius's ideas, but of course Montaigne adds his own twist. And this one comes from another brilliant essay by Montaigne. Once again, I would really recommend you to read that one in full after watching this video. It's called Of Solitude. So let's begin with the passages. They are quite brief. The first very brief passage comes from Montaigne's essay of idleness, which I would really recommend all of you to read in full. In idleness, he says, unless you keep your thoughts busy with some definite subject that will bridle and control them, they throw themselves in disorder in the vague field of imagination. I began to put them in writing, hoping in time to make my mind ashamed of itself. In the next passage that comes from his essay of solitude, Montaigne writes, we must reserve a back shop all our own, entirely free, in which to establish our real liberty and our principal retreat and solitude. Here, our ordinary conversation must be between us and ourselves. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. So essentially what Montaigne suggests is that there are two moves what we can take, and the first one is to give the mind a definite subject, to bridle the mind, to tame this horse that has lost the control, to adjust the sails of our ship. And the second thing is to give us a private interior room, a place where we actually can hear our thoughts. And if this was relevant to Montaigne's time, 500 years ago, when all the religious conflict was engulfing Europe, I think this private room idea, the back shop of the mind that he calls, is particularly relevant to our time as well. Alright, I would like to sit down to tell you about those 6 techniques that I selected for you, which can help you to tame your thoughts, because they were definitely useful to myself. And the way I selected it is, first of all, I went through these 2 wonderful editions of Montaigne's essays. This one is a selection and is much shorter and easier to carry when you read it during your commute, if you read things during your commute. This one is the full collection of Montaigne's essays, and that's why it's quite thick. And if I had to choose, I would choose this one because it has some amazing essays that this one misses. The way I identified and selected those techniques is I went through these journals and I tried to identify that invisible thread that connects Montaigne's essays together. How did he anchor his thoughts? And the way he did it is that in the first tip that I would like to suggest is that he always asked himself a very broad and yet very concise questions. Questions such as, what is a true friendship? What he did is that he asked this question to himself, spoke a little bit about his own life and his own experience. He went through deep thinkers from Cicero, Seneca, Lucretius, whoever it would be, and asked them what did they think about true friendships. It is an incredible technique because it helps to direct your thoughts towards a concrete topic that you want to address your thoughts to. When you have one worthy question that you're seeking an answer to, it's an incredible way to tame your disordered and disorganized thoughts. The second thing what he did is that he often addressed his letters, his essays, to great thinkers of the past whom he admired. I practiced this as well, especially in 2025. I wrote several letters and published them on my Substack, where I address thinkers such as Cicero and Seneca, thinkers that I know, whose authority I respect. And I address my thoughts because often when we speak to someone, we can articulate our thoughts better. When we write to some invisible force, it's hard to articulate our thoughts. So select a thinker, an artist, whoever you admire, and address your thoughts to them. The third technique comes from the Greek word akrasia, and I apologize to my Greek speakers for butchering that word, but akrasia is mastery. And what Montaigne used to do in his essays, he often went and said, I tried to become a better friend today, but I failed. And he said, why? He examined it. And this is an incredible tip that will help you to direct your power of will to get in control of your impulses. If you don't have a direction, every destination is important to you. With this third technique is how we build our character. And as we know, a man's character is his fate. In order to change our fates, we need to change our characters. The fourth technique that I wanted to mention is that we often are praised in the form of flattery. A colleague tells us good words, but they don't mean it. They just want something out of us. But most often than not, we are not even receiving a praise in form of flattery. We are often told what we do wrong. One of the best ways how you can gain control over your inner self-critic is to direct your thoughts towards something good that you already do. It's not particularly self-praise, but it is going through your relationships, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your friend. And you ask yourself, what are you doing there right? Why are you successful there? What stands behind it? And you can dissect it the way Montaigne did it in his essays. So this technique really helps you to tame your thoughts that are often self-critical. The fifth tip is also incredibly interesting, and it is selecting something that you want to do well tomorrow. And it sounds simple, but the purpose of this technique is a problem that we often suffer in our imagination more than we do in reality. The way we reduce the anxiety of tomorrow, we are focusing on action, what we can do better. Because once we select what we can do, we realize that there are still many things that are in our control. We kind of flip everything upside down. Instead of worrying of a thing that we have no influence on at all, and therefore causing anxiety, we flip it and put instead what we can change. When we focus on action, we focus on what we can change. And the sixth tip is the most important one and yet the most difficult one. I think this definitely needs a separate video that I will explore quite soon on my channel. What Montaigne does throughout his essays, he looks at what triggers his actions, what triggers his responses. He identifies what triggers his actions. Then what he does is that he focuses what kind of emotions did that trigger create in him. Something external made him act. This external trigger often arises emotions in us, feelings in us, Montaigne says we need to examine that. And then what he does, he says, after we look at the trigger and then we'll look at the emotions, we need to look at what thoughts arose in us as a consequence, because most often than not, we are feelings precede the thoughts. So after the trigger and after the feelings and after the thoughts, Montaigne says that we need to see what choices we made in consequence of this. It is just incredible self-examination, if you think. And the final two steps, because Montaigne never stops until he gets to the core of the truth, he says, after you've examined what triggers you to act, what feelings it accompanies, what thoughts they create, and what choices you make, you need to examine what outcomes came after you made a particular choice. And then he says about the final step, he says, we need to tell ourselves what lessons have we learned. So here is a chain of approximately 6 things, of which I would call Montaigne's technique or decision autopsy. He says, examine what triggers you, then what feelings arise, then what thoughts they create, then what choices do you make, then what outcomes those choices have, and what lessons you learn as a result of them. These were 6 techniques that I wanted to share with you. Ask yourself a question. Always speak to someone you admire. Always look at what you've mastered and what you could do better and what stands on your way of building a character. Always praise the good within yourself to tell yourself what you are doing well. Then, of course, think about tomorrow, but think about not the things that lie beyond your control, but what lies in your control. Then, finally, make a decision autopsy, which includes 6 steps. I truly believe if all of us practice this regularly, the world would have been a better place. I have much more on my Patreon, and these 6 steps will be examined in a much more deeper way in there. If you are interested, please jump to the Patreon. Everything will be provided there. It's also an awesome way for you to support me. There is a series that I'm launching very soon, a podcast series called The History of Journaling. In each episode, we're going to see how journaling habit evolved. If you're curious, everything will be linked down below, including these 2 amazing books for you to have a look. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.